Angelos, captain of the Blood Ravens. My chapter is in ruins. The sector is at war. Its worlds under siege. Chaos spreads, consumes us all. Here, we will make our final stand. Here, there will be retribution.
Hello again, everybody. I am Big Red One, and welcome to the review of Dawn of War 2 Retribution. First thing I want to get to in this review is going to be, why is this game going to be different from everything that they've produced in the past? I mean, this is the third expansion. Really, where else could they take the game? And what they've done, as you're seeing on your screen right now, is pretty amazing. They've given us 6 playable races for the single-player campaign, which means you're not stuck just playing the Space Marines anymore. You get to choose your favorite race out of the 6 that are shown here, and you get to play them through the entire campaign. This is a pretty amazing thing. I've never played a game where I've had this much freedom as far as choosing who I was going to play in a single-player campaign, especially when it comes to real-time strategy games. I really feel like this is a very cool move by Dawn of War 2. Compared to a game like StarCraft 2, it's very hard to keep up with something like that is that popular, and they're doing what they can to infuse some new blood and some new ideas into this kind of genre, and I really thought this was a real step forward. And I'm going to get to more about why I think it's a step forward and perhaps why there's some drawbacks to it later in this review. But what I really want you to do right now is take a minute and look at that and just kind of think to yourself, you know, which one would you want to play, and realize that each race has their own motives and their own reasons for playing this game, and towards the end you'll get to see how they differentiate, you know, being the more selfish Eldar versus the evil Chaos Marines, or the noble Space Marines, or the just generally their Imperial Guard. Again, very interesting stuff what you're going to see as we go through, and I'll get to more of that later. What you're seeing here is going to be your basic space map that you're going to deal with through most of the game as you decide which missions to launch to, and you know, if you're going to take the optional missions, things like that. It's also going to be where you're going to move around to find your different equipment and how you're going to put them on different characters, as well as how you're going to upgrade your units that aren't available or will be available in the future. As you can see, you've got multiple worlds. It's not the same as it used to be in the previous games. It's one big star map as opposed to traveling between planet to planet, which is a little different. But as you're seeing in the bottom right corner, you're also going to see the different units you have available. And this is where you're going to really get to see some differences between the previous games as well as this game. In the previous games, you had your 4 heroes. They each had their own squad, and that was really all you had. You didn't have a choice. In this game, you have 4 heroes, but the heroes are units unto themselves. They don't have any auxiliary. Well, most of them don't, I should say. The general here that you're seeing, he has auxiliary. He has 2 soldiers that get to carry with him, but most of the others are single units that are just uber powerful and play through the game. The other thing you're going to see is down at the bottom right, instead of upgrading points to get more life and more power and more energy, when you upgrade, you're actually upgrading abilities. Each point that you upgrade when your character levels up is going to give you a new ability for that character. And what I'm doing right now is showing you how there is different abilities which will net you different bonuses for that character specifically, as well as other units in the game. You're really not going to find any other differences, though, between the equipment in this game and the previous games. It's all about the same concept. Different weapons give you different abilities or different damage, things like that. One thing you will notice is that the equipment is going to be specific to each race. What you find for the Imperial Guard here will not be the same you find for the Space Marines or the Tyranid or the Orcs, the Eldar, or the Chaos Marines, which I think is really cool because it feels more customizable and more specific to the race you're playing. I definitely appreciate that. Back on the star map now, you're going to see when I click a mission that the mission is going to bring up the standard transmission that comes through, which explains why you're going on this mission and what you can get from it. And what you're going to see is that each mission brings you a choice between picking equipment, an upgrade for your units that you can recruit in the game, or a new type of unit itself. This is an interesting concept because it makes a little more weight to your decision as to how you're going to play the game. You can avoid having certain units in favor of having more equipment for your heroes or upgrades for certain units that you like to deploy. What you're going to see here, though, is cool because when you go to deploy into the game, you can pick whether or not you want to have all 4 heroes, or you can replace certain heroes with certain what they call honor guards, which are just strong versions of what you can recruit in the game normally. They have extra abilities and things like that, which is very cool. Also, you're going to notice that underneath each hero or honor guard is some abilities that are either highlighted or not. And what that says is that when your hero is not deployed, some of the abilities that the hero gets automatically transfer to the honor guard, which makes your honor guard a little more powerful as well. And I personally think that's a real cool decision because you get to choose between heroes or the units. Personally, I tend to choose just having the heroes. Alright guys, now's the time to review where I'm going to take some time and explain things like the story and the gameplay. And I'm going to start with the story because I feel like the story is something everybody's going to need to know. It isn't as strong as the other games, and there's a reason for that. There are 6 different playable races in this game where each has to play through a campaign, but creating 6 individual campaigns is going to take a lot of time and effort, and I didn't want to wait 3 years for it, and I know the people that made Dawn of War 2 didn't want to wait 3 years to make it. So what they did is they made one single player campaign that every race can play through, and the campaigns are all about stopping Chapter Master Azarai Kairos. For whatever reason, you know, whether you're the Tyranid or the Orcs, each race has your own specific reasoning for taking care of Chapter Master Azarai. For those who don't know who Chapter Master Azarai Kairos is, he is actually the leader of the Blood Ravens. But what you find out in the last game is that he's actually working for the Blood God Khorne, and he's become an agent of chaos, and he's trying to destroy the entire sector. In the game, though, you've got options between who you pick, and I tended to focus on the Imperial Guard, which have an interesting idea in this game, which is all about serving the Emperor's will. It's not about, you know, trying to avenge their chapter and the way the chapter master's handling it. They're simply here as agents of the Emperor, which is really cool because it really doesn't focus on anything other than taking care of business. It's not about vengeance or retribution or finding loot. It's just about doing the right thing, which is stopping this man from destroying whole worlds. And that's really what you're going to find in this game for the Imperial Guard, is that you're just here to do the Emperor's will, and overall, I believe they are one of the stronger points of this game. Another point that I think you're going to want to know is that there is no weight to the decisions in this game, whereas in the previous games you had deployment times, which meant you could take certain missions and you'd have to avoid other missions because you had to complete the overall game. So your optional missions then felt as if you were really taking the time to get them done and really taking a risk, whereas in this game that's not the case. Because of the way the story is written, it's so linear that you either take the optional mission or you don't. There's no benefit other than getting the equipment, and there's no drawback to you either. There's also no more of the mechanic that you saw in Tales Rising, where you got to choose whether or not you completed certain objectives and whether or not it would turn you towards chaos or turn you into the standard noble marine that you would think you would be at the end of the game. And I really thought that was a cool mechanic that I was hoping that they were going to carry forth in this game, which ultimately they did not. The gameplay is an interesting area where I believe they made a good choice, which is that it plays much more like the multiplayer than it did in the previous games, where you have more units, you have a lot more battles going on because you've just got more people everywhere firing and things blowing up. It's actually a lot of fun, and it definitely gets you into the game in a very different way than the previous ones did. You're not as attached to your hero units, but at the same time, Dawn of War and Warhammer 40k is all about grand scale battle and just people dying everywhere. That's the whole point of this universe, is the very crux of the issue for them. I thought it was very cool. I did not like, though, that what you gather on the map is requisition points and things like that. I understand why they did it, but I liked finding equipment on the map as opposed to this. It really doesn't make a difference, and it's just my personal opinion. I know that, and some of you guys might think, hey, I like this, it's just like the multiplayer, and I really enjoyed the multiplayer. And that's great if you do. This is just something small that bothered me. I don't really have a good reason for it other than I just seem to like it the other way better. Alright guys, just a few key points just to finish up now. I want to talk about the fact that there's not a lot of loot in this game. If you liked collecting loot and equipment pieces in the other games, you're not going to get that here. You'll find one or two, sometimes none, on a map, which is a little disconcerting for me. I liked having a ton of equipment to go through and really dig into to find out what piece of equipment would benefit me the most. You don't have that in this game. It's not a big gripe, but it's definitely something I was looking forward to, was finding the loot. I always enjoyed it. Plus, I was looking forward to the difference in equipment between race to race. And because there's not a whole lot of equipment, I just don't feel like they really took the time to make it work. The other thing I want to talk about is the multiplayer. The multiplayer hasn't changed, so if you're looking really for something new in this game, you're not going to get it. Basically, in this game, what you are going to get, though, is a fully functional single-player experience that has a lot of replayability because you've got 6 different races. But ultimately, understand that the game isn't going to change. A little bit of the narrative will, but the focus of the game is really going to be the same for everybody. You're going to stop Kairos, and that's how it's going to be. I would recommend the game. It's definitely worth your money for $30. Absolutely. Pick it up and enjoy it, guys.